Welcome to the Performance Anxiety Masterclass. I'm starting with mindset because the wrong mindset will actually prevent you from solving this problem. You heard that right. So if you're a guy who's feeling stuck, you feel like you're worrying all day about this problem, and you sit there and think about all the bad things that can happen, whether you're going to lose your erection and it's preventing you from, having a healthy relationship, or it's making you worry you're going to lose your relationship over this problem, I would suggest watching this video all the way through, and I would also suggest watching it multiple times, because this is not necessarily just something where you need information. Sometimes you need to be reminded. And so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Cam Joyner, and I had sexual anxiety and erectile dysfunction for 7 years, and I eventually overcame it. And I've been helping guys like you heal from this for the last 7 years. So everything that's happening in this video is coming from something that I personally have experienced and seen and helped other people with. And so this is not just something I read in a book. It's not theory. This is tried and true, tested. Okay, so what I'm going to cover in this masterclass is, the first one is healthy mindset, which is going to be today's video. Then we're going to go over practical causes of the loss of erections. Then we're going to talk about understanding the origin of where this problem started in your life. Because when you understand why something happened, it can tend to take fear and ambiguity out of it. Then I'm going to talk about the structure that you can use for improvement that will more or less take the first three materials and show them how practically they work. And then aftercare is kind of its own thing. So in this module today, I'm going to talk about why you should change your mindset. So basically, I can say change your mind, but why is that important? So you need to see the practical understanding of what that does and why it's worth doing. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of tough love to kind of move you in the right direction, to make sure you don't just know that you should do it, that you actually put some effort into it. Then we're going to talk about some useful definitions of performance anxiety and psychological erectile dysfunction. I think that a lot of the ways that people define it make it harder to deal with because it's kind of ambiguous. And then I'm going to talk about the two main approaches that I've seen in this space, practical versus spiritual. And there's the hidden blessing of performance anxiety. This is one of my favorite topics because it's such a painful thing, and guys get fixated on that, but they don't understand that there is actually some really beautiful stuff that comes out of it. And the more you know that, the easier the problem becomes to deal with. And then I'm going to talk about what a mature mindset for dealing with it really looks like. Okay, so once again, I would recommend watching this video all the way to the end if you're struggling with this problem, because this is going to be really potent and it's going to set you up for the rest of this masterclass. Okay, so healthy mindsets. So right now, the state that most of you are in is that you're in a lot of pain. So a lot of guys that I talk to, they describe this as the most painful problem in their life. And a lot of times they don't know what to do. So they feel stuck. They don't know what steps to take. They're not even sure if it's fixable. Most of them are really, really worried that it's not a fixable problem. And I know for me personally, for a lot of the journey that I was on, I didn't think it was going to be fixable. So for most of those 7 years, I would say I really, I had glimmers of hope because I'd had a few experiences that allowed me to see that it was possible. But for most of that time, I really didn't believe it was possible. And that definitely worked against me the whole time. So the state that I want you to be in after this is I want you to have a more mature perspective of the situation. And the thing is that just changing the way you look at it has a lot of benefits. It can help you significantly lower the amount of pain that you're in immediately. And that is a really important step, because if you're in so much pain, like if you think about if somebody like just hits their shin against like a table or something, or they accidentally kick something in their house, they can still walk. But if somebody has like a severely broken leg, they can't put pressure on it because it's too much pain. And so if you allow yourself to stay in too much emotional pain over the situation, it becomes the major obstacle to actually fixing it. So at the end of this video, I want you to be in less pain and understand how to get yourself in less pain, because you do have to put in some effort for the mindset. And I'm going to help you understand what it looks like on the other side and why it's worth fixing. Okay, so a little bit of tough love. I'm going to basically say to you what I wish somebody had said to me when I was going through this, which is that every day when you wake up, this problem will be there. And it's a problem that tends to get worse over time, meaning that 1 week from now, it's going to be worse than it, slightly worse than it is today. A year from now, it'll be even worse. So if you think about what you're doing right now to try and fix this problem, and you play that forward 5 years, do you think that it will have fixed the problem? And if the answer is no, you need to change it. And you need to change it as soon as possible, because every day you wait, it gets harder to fix. And it doesn't mean that the problem has to be fixed or it's getting worse, but like, you need to do things to improve it. And any day that you don't spend some effort, some time trying to make it better, it's going to get worse, because the patterns in your life that created this problem to begin with, they have momentum, and breaking those patterns requires effort. And so just think every day you're getting one step further away from your goal unless you take 2 steps forward. And the reality of what this problem can do to your life is that it can take you into the most severe depression. It can end your important relationships. It can prevent you from earning money because it messes with your confidence. It can more or less make you into a very, very unhappy person. And whatever amount of unhappy you are right now, just think about what it would be like 5 years from now or 10 years from now. I have guys that have had this problem there was a guy I work with that had it for 40 years. I've had many guys who had it for over 20. So think about what it would be like. Don't assume it's just going to go away. And the other thing is that there's no instant fix for this problem. We'll talk about more later on in this video why that is, but there's not one tip that I can give you that's just going to magically make it go away. You have to earn it. You need to put yourself into the mindset of, I'm going to attack this problem like a warrior, and I'm not going to give up. And even though I don't necessarily understand all the way, like the whole journey, like I'm just not going to let myself get eaten by this problem. And if you can be really clear with yourself and you can keep that kind of mindset where I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to attack this problem. I don't know what I have to do, but I'm going to do something every single day. It'll get better. If you don't do that, it will get worse over time. That's just the reality. And the thing is that what I want to emphasize in this video is that the other side of this problem is so worth it. Your life will be better on the other side, which I'll talk about more. But if you don't do it, your life is going to get worse. Whatever amount of pain you're in right now, add 5 years. So it's worth the effort. Put in the effort. Keep going over this video. This video repeatedly, like I would repeat this video. Like when I was going through this, the way that I installed the correct mindsets is I recorded things for myself and I listened to them over and over and over and over again. I listen to them every day because it's not about information. You probably have enough information, especially if you've been through my YouTube channel. I have guys that reach out to me and tell me they fixed their issues just from YouTube. I have guys who have emailed me about that. I had a guy from a third world country go on and pay about a third of what his price for rent is so that he could tell me in person on a call that he'd fix his issues from my free YouTube videos. So the issue is not about information. The problem is that you're probably dealing with right now is that the mindset that you're in is causing you so much pain that you are not able to take the steps that you need. And so the easiest way to change the way that you feel, the amount of pain that you're in, is just listen to this video over and over and over again. That's really, really, really simple, easy way to install a better mindset. Because if you think about this problem correctly, it's a lot easier to solve. If you think about it incorrectly, it's really difficult. And I did it the hard way for a long time until I started realizing the impact of my mind. Okay, so my definition of performance anxiety. So I think a lot of definitions out there are not that helpful, but I define it as the inability to get or stay hard due to the misunderstandings of the consequences of bad sex. So if you break down the most common fears that guys have, so things like she's going to leave me or she's going to cheat on me, which are very similar. I'm going to be embarrassed, or she's going to be dissatisfied. She's going to tell her friends. If you look at any of the things that guys worry about, like I'm not going to be able to enjoy sex, like they all come down to what happens if you are not hard. What happens if you are not doing well in bed? And the thing that's really interesting about these is that they feel very true. The emotions that you experience are very real, but oftentimes the consequence of if that happens is not even what you're experiencing. So if you're really worried your wife is going to leave you over this problem, but you've had it for 5 years and she's been with you the whole time, chances are she's not going to leave you over that problem. And so performance anxiety oftentimes comes down to things that you believe are true that are not true. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later on in this lesson, and then also in the next lesson of practical causes. And so psychological erectile dysfunction to me is just a severe form of performance anxiety. Nice and simple. I think if you can look at it from this way, that this really is a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding is the key word. Misunderstanding. You can understand that it's okay to let some of those fears go. The things that you're afraid of are not necessarily true. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the two approaches that I see guys taking with this, and I'll tell you what I did and what I have found works. So the two approaches are practical and the spiritual. And so if you're a guy and you see spiritual and you're kind of eye rolling, that's kind of how I was when I started. I was a very practical guy, but I want to define spiritual in a way that the way that I view it, because that I think when you'll look at it from that perspective, it's not something you need to roll your eyes at. It's fine. And so practical is basically identifying and correcting small overlooked details that are interfering with your arousal. So it's the understanding that small things can have a big impact. And so small detail examples would be like if your condoms are on the other side of the room, walking across the room is not going to be good for your erection quality. Or if you already know you have a lot of tension in your hips, understanding that tension is the opposite of relaxation. And so maybe doing something to loosen your body, and also like the order that things happen in can interfere with arousal. This kind of stuff I'll talk about in the next step. But so the spiritual definition that I use is basically increasing self-awareness to correct character weaknesses through growth. And what I mean by this is another way to say this is being able to be really honest with yourself about your mistakes, the ways that you're behaving that are contributing to the problem. And basically, the word character weaknesses is often used in AA, but it's more or less just the parts of yourself that are problematic, that are causing issues that you're kind of blind to. And so the spiritual side of it to me is becoming aware of that. And then it's also recognizing that the point of you having sexual dysfunction is it relates to your relationship with whatever's bigger than you. So life, consciousness, God, nature, whatever you want to call it. But that something is guiding you through this process, like that you have this for a reason, and that reason is to help you grow and experience life in a more full way. And so this mindset I'll talk about a little bit more later on. But most guys are really good at one part at the detriment of the other. I started out being very practical because I worked in IT for many years, and then I was definitely too practical. I was an atheist at the time, and then I overcorrected. I went to the ultra spiritual side. I thought I could meditate the problem away. But these two things are basically a cycle, and basically you have to balance both of them. So if you think about it, the more practical you can be, the more that you can see that you can impact the situation, that actually allows you to trust yourself and be more honest with yourself about the ways that you're causing the problem. It's hard to admit that I'm involved in creating something that's so painful. But once you can be honest enough with yourself about that, then it opens up for you to be able to see practical details that you were kind of mentally hiding from yourself. And so the self-honesty allows for you to see more details. The details allow for you to trust yourself enough to be more honest. And so it's a cycle, and you have to balance both of them. So the practical tools you're already aware of: go to the doctor. It's stupid not to. Make sure you have a healthy heart and you have a healthy blood pressure. And there's other things that this problem can be a sign of. Just do it. It'll give you peace of mind. Pills and supplements are other practical tools. I'm not going to talk about those too much because I talk about them in other videos, but the tools that I rely on for practicality are analysis and planning, which is what modules 2 and 3 are going to be about, in this masterclass. So I'll talk about those more in detail later. Spiritual tools, most common one is meditation. Meditation, if you aren't aware of it, is it's basically designed to help you relax your mind. Like your mind can actually be agitated. It can help you relax your nervous system. Your nervous system contributes to anxiety. If your body's stuck in an anxious state, if it's stuck in fight or flight. And meditation is, it's a tool that pretty much anyone with this problem, I would say it's a healthy thing to explore. I have some meditations on my channel if you want to check them out. Yoga is more or less like it's useful from the perspective that if there's tension in your body, getting that tension out is likely to increase relaxation. Anxiety and relaxation are not states that can really exist well at the same time. So relaxing your body is helpful. The next the next tool is something I've avoided talking about, but it was actually a very important part of my journey, but I avoided talking about it because it's really misunderstood. And that's astrology. So most people, what they think of as astrology is actually a horoscope. So if you know your sign, in astrology, that's actually your sun sign. That's one of 10 planets that you can have. We call things in astrology planets that aren't planets, but basically astrology is a really potent tool for self-understanding, and specifically with this problem, it's very potent in helping guys understand their actual sexual needs and their actual needs in relationships. So a lot of these things for men get skewed by not having good role models for relationships, or watching role models from, like parents or something that have a kind of relationship that you're not compatible with. Or for sexually, a lot of guys get this skewed by porn, so they don't really understand their own sexual needs. And so with my one-on-one clients, we use astrology to help clarify their relationship and sexual needs. The next one is awareness of thoughts. Oh, one more thing on this. I've avoided making content on this because I didn't think people would be interested. If you would like to see me make something on it, leave comments down below. If enough guys are interested, I'll do it. If not, it's fine. Awareness of thoughts. So a lot of people go to meditation to get what I got out of awareness of thoughts. And so I lived in a monastery for 3 years, and so I meditated about over 5,000 hours in that time. And meditation does quiet your mind down. It can relax your nervous system, but the most helpful thing that I got out of that time was being alone with my mind and watching the relationship between the things that I believed and how those made me think, and the ways that I thought and how those made me feel, and the way that I felt and how that made me behave. And so you can actually see an unbroken line between what you believe and how you behave based on the way that you think and the way that you feel. And so there's a few beliefs that guys have that are pretty universal with sexual dysfunction, sexual anxiety, that I'll talk about in the next module, and I'll talk about how to deal with them. With my one-on-one clients, we find sort of the other ones. So there's a lot of them that are person specific. So based on your relationship history, how your parents were, the way that your experiences in life, these can get really person dependent. So, the thing that's really interesting about beliefs is that they kind of form like an invisible cage, because you are, they're things that you believe are true. And so you don't even examine them. You treat them the same way that you would treat them, that gravity will keep me stuck to the earth. It's just something you don't think about, like, how do I get gravity? Is gravity going to keep me stuck today? You just assume your whole life is built around it, and that's kind of how beliefs are. It's a very, very bizarre experience, but the fastest way to fix this problem is to figure out the beliefs that are at the root of it and get rid of them. Okay, so I want to share a perspective from having fought this battle and won, and this is the best thing that ever happened to me. So I share this with my clients. I say it all the time. Before I had this problem, I was very unaware of my emotions. I was angry. I was an asshole. I wasn't empathetic. I didn't care about how my behavior affected other people, and I was not happy. This problem forced me to stop putting all my focus into things that didn't matter and pay attention to how my behaviors were affecting my emotions, how my emotions were affecting my life, how the way that I thought about the world and looked at the world were causing me pain and problems. And so I did not enjoy having erectile dysfunction. It was incredibly painful, but it is absolutely the best thing that ever happened to me. I would not be married to a wonderful woman. I wouldn't have a baby. I wouldn't be helping guys like you. I would be sitting in a villa somewhere earning a crazy amount of money from working myself into a grave. And the thing is, it's not just the best thing that ever happened to me. It's the best thing that ever happened to you. And I tell my clients this, and they don't believe me typically until months later. But this problem forces you to slow down and become aware of yourself. It allows you to realize ways that you've been behaving that are not who you really are, and those ways require effort and cause pain. And so when you can stop behaving in those ways and just be who you are, life just gets simpler. So I've been coaching guys for 7 years. Take that statement seriously. This is the best thing that ever happened to you if you let it. And the if you let it part is, if you just stay in a hopeless state and you don't do anything to fix the problem, it won't be the best thing that ever happened to you. It will be the worst. And if you go on the journey and you face it and you get past it, it will be the best thing that ever happened to you. I promise. So right now, the problem that you're running into is that you are focused on what you've lost. You're focused on your current state. So you've lost the ability to have sex when you want, or maybe you never had that. You've lost confidence, or maybe you've never had confidence. You've lost feeling normal, or you're worried you're going to lose relationships, or you've stayed away from them. And the problem that you're running into is that you have probably never thought about what's on the other side of this issue. And so I'm going to actually play a clip from one of my clients.
You lose all hope, and it's a spiral. And I can see how people could get, very, very distraught, really think that their life with any meaning is over. So I would say, just if that's you right now, don't give up hope. It's not worth, it's not worth thinking the worst. That will only extend the issues. In order to heal from this affliction, you need to start thinking about things in a different way. I would say just be ready to make some changes, how you think, what you do, and understand that. So Cam can guide you through making those changes, and in the end you will understand that things are so much better on the other side than they were when you were blissfully ignorant. I'll put it that way.
Okay, so there's 3 things that I want to point out from Rick's statement. The first one is that he mentioned in that very short clip changing the way you think twice. He mentioned that twice. So of all the things that he said in that video, the most time was taken up. The emphasis was on changing the way you think, which is what this video is about. So he understands the perspective because he has also had erectile dysfunction and sexual anxiety, and he's also overcome them. And so he knows what the difference between those 2 things are. I have a bunch of testimonials where guys talk about changing the way you think. So perspective is part of how you think. The next thing I want to point out is that he says that that things are better on the other side. He says that things are better than on the other side than when you had this terrible affliction, and they're better than before when you were blissfully ignorant. So blissfully ignorant is something I'm going to talk about in the next section here in this video. But he didn't use the words "the best thing that ever happened to me," but he's basically saying that my life is better now than it was before I had this problem. And that is a pretty universal experience of guys that I help. So to me, this problem is actually beautiful. It's a really beautiful problem because life takes away something that's very important to you and it's very painful. But if you go through the effort to fix it, on the other side, the sex that you have is better. The way that you live day-to-day life is better. And so to me, performance anxiety is actually, it creates the conditions for amazing sex. So let me explain that. So this is my own little thing, but I break the experience of anything that you learn into 3 stages. There's blissful ignorance, where you're like, I want to try this thing. And then there's painful awareness, where you find out how difficult the thing really is. And then if you go through that and you learn, you go to blissful awareness. So I'm going to give a metaphor about this, and then I'm going to tie it to the sexual situations. So if a child's given a toy piano and it presses one key and that key plays an entire song, and the kid's like, I like music, I want to learn to play the piano. And then they pester their parents. Any of you who are parents understand that. So the kid gets a real keyboard, and the kid presses one key and it only plays one note now. And so the child is sad. And at that moment, the child has a choice. The child can either give up, seeing how much more complex it is, or they can begin to practice and learn to play beautiful music. So from the moment that the child gets the real keyboard, it's objectively worse than the toy piano. So you hand a keyboard to somebody who doesn't know how to play the piano, they're not even going to be able to play the most basic songs that the keyboard could play, or the toy one could play. And the real keyboard is significantly more complex, but because it's more complex, it has infinite possibilities. So the toy keyboard is objectively better on day one than the real piano. It's also simpler, and it also has very limited possibilities. That toy keyboard is only going to play the exact songs that it was programmed with. So the toy keyboard relates to blissful ignorance. Okay? The real keyboard is painful awareness. The moment that real keyboard is given and you realize one key does not play one entire song, it's a painful experience. But somebody who becomes a skilled player moves into blissful awareness. So the way this relates to sex is guys that that you're like, man, I wish I could get hard every time like Todd. They have blissful ignorance. If a guy's if he just gets hard every time he wants, and he's never lost an erection, he's in a blissfully ignorant state. Yes, he can enjoy sex in ways that right now you can't, but he has a very limited scope of what he can enjoy because he's going through a kind of sex that is very robotic. It's very pattern driven. He doesn't understand what turns him on. He doesn't understand why his erections work. He's probably not very emotionally aware. And so the very first time that you started losing your erections, you entered the painful awareness state. Basically what happened is that you found out that your body was like the real keyboard. You press one key and it doesn't play an entire song. And so if you want to go from where you are right now to getting hard every single time, you need to learn how to play your body. You need to learn the complexity of it. And it's just practice and learning. So sexual anxiety is a catalyst that forces you to acknowledge the importance of things like your emotions and your beliefs and find out what your own sexual needs actually are. And the thing is that it temporarily removes the possibility of simplistic sex until those things are understood and integrated. And so what I mean by that is that the possibility of you just being able to get hard and have porn style sex, it still exists in your future. But in order to do that, you have to start getting interested in your own emotions and interested in the way that your mind works and your own unique needs. And once you start to explore those things, then you'll get your sex life back. But the thing that happens is that you'll become interested to the point where even after you get your erections back, you'll still want to learn about yourself. And so you have to acknowledge this from a mature perspective. You have to acknowledge you are the one causing the problem. You have to say, I'm the one causing the problem. You have to take full responsibility for this type of dysfunction. And the good news about that is when you say, I'm the one causing this problem, it means that you can fix it. Okay? So if you are stuck in like moping and self-pity, you have to understand that's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to keep you stuck. So focus on improving your sex life. Treat it as a learning experience. Treat it the same. Like right now, you put pressure on yourself because you feel like I should be good at sex, but no one taught you how to use your instrument. No, you didn't have body lessons where someone sat down and said, this is how your mind works, and this is how your emotions work, and this is how you make them work together in order to enjoy sex. And so you need to take the expectation that you should know how this works out of your thinking and treat it as, I'm a beginner and I'm going to learn, because if I learn, I will be able to play really well. And you don't have to become a sex master to heal. You literally just have to improve enough that you get to a point where these things become interesting to you and where you start to understand what was happening. And from that moment, you'll get your erections back, but then you'll also have this new, more complex dimension of life. Because think about it this way. For you to have actual, like, the best possible sex, like, it should be sex that's that stretches into the most areas of your life. It should be mentally stimulating and arousing. It should be emotionally arousing. So that means you have to have a good connection with the person that you're with. The other person should be enjoying it, and their emotions should also be in a good state. And you should have your environment set up in the best state possible. And you should be able to understand what you need. And you should also understand what your partner needs. And so chances are that's not the way that you go into sex. And you don't have to completely understand all of those things. But you can understand that if you learn how to do more of those things well, the possibility for better sex, that's what it really looks like. The best sex that you will ever have is when you're connected to the other person, you're connected to yourself, you feel good, they feel good, and the things that arouse you are what's happening. You're doing the things that arouse you. You're exposing yourself in the correct ways to the things that are arousing you so that you can continuously bring yourself to better states of arousal. But that's not the way you've been having sex. And so the mature perspective is to understand that it's not only sex that you can learn to do that in, but the rest of your life. You can understand, how do I make sure that my emotional state is healthier on a day-to-day basis? What are the things that I'm doing that are interfering with my emotional state? Okay, in my relationships, what are the things that I'm doing that are hurting my emotional state of my partner? You know, what are her needs? What are my needs? And you realize that this problem just opens up this whole amazing dimension of life that allows you to live happier. So if you take this seriously, if you really change your mindset, you'll be much happier on the other side than you are here. So that's the end of part 1. I'll see you in part 2, practical causes. And if you want help with this process, there's a link down below on how you can work with me one-on-one. So I do have limited spots, but I love working with you guys. And if you can't afford to work with me, this material is meant to help you. I still want you to win. It's a fixable problem. Keep your mindset up. Watch this video repeatedly until this is the way you think, and I'll see you in the next video.